What's happening, juicers? That's juicer, drink your OJ. So you are the juice people? I don't know. Anyway, here I am, and I haven't done any videos in a little while, and I didn't have, it's not like I don't have other things to work on, so I didn't have anything in, the front of my mind that I felt was going to need any kind of video. I wasn't thinking about making a video, is what I'm trying to say. But then this story came up, and I thought I should just go ahead and give my take, because I think it is pretty indicative of, where the Republican Party is at. And I thought I could, give a quick couple-minute video to feed everybody some of that juicy content. And also, just kind of share my feelings on a topic that, is relevant to politics, which is what I do and what this channel's about. So, hey, speaking of this channel, go ahead and, while I'm talking about it, give that like button a little tap. Don't have to smash it. The subscribe button, you can go ahead and smash the hell out of. It can take it. And then, you can do the notification bell thing. I don't know. I guess those are the things I'm supposed to say. So yeah, subscribe, like, and all that good stuff. So now that that's out of the way, I'm definitely not doing this contemporaneously, or I should say extemporaneously, off the cuff. This is very well rehearsed, the George Carlin-esque style monologue. So what we're talking about is this issue of fashion in the Senate. And before I give my take on it, let's go ahead and let's just take a look at the kind of the background of the whole story.
Let me start with the most important matter facing our country at this dire moment, which is the matter of the Senate dress code, which has recently been changed.
Of course, yes, yeah, no, of course. I've heard that some people are upset about that, and the right have been losing their mind. They're just oh my God, dogs and cats are living together, and like I said, aren't there more important things we should be talking about rather than if I dress like a slob?
There certainly are more important things to be talking about, but some are.
So before we get into the actual commentary, I just want to mention, that line that Fetterman said about dressing like a slob. And he is referring to, let's go ahead and see if I can pull it up on the fly while I'm talking about it. He's referring to a tweet that was sent out that literally called him, and let me make sure I get the quote right. Okay, so here's the tweet I was talking about from Monica Crowley. It says, "The Senate will no longer enforce its dress code, all because John Fetterman is a revolting slob. This is a material debasement of a storied institution and an absolute reflection of America's steep decline." And, I personally would say that somebody calling a senator a revolting slob, their words, just because this person is wearing shorts and sweatshirts as opposed to, standard business attire. I mean, okay, if you want to use the word slob, I guess you can be disparaging in that way and go ahead and stretch the use of the word to apply to somebody who just dresses, unprofessionally in general, or not up to your standards in general. But to use the word revolting as well, what's the dictionary definition of revolting? It says causing intense disgust or disgusting. So intense disgust this woman feels when she looks at John Fetterman wearing his casual sports attire, which is something that so many Americans wear all the time. Granted, they're not in the Senate, but it's not like it's something, it's not like it's a person walking around nude that is definitely going to catch your attention. Like, it's not somebody walking around with a bunch of sparklers sticking out of their ass to like try to distract you. It's just somebody dressed more casually than you're used to in your workplace. But so you know, it kind of gives you a little peek into how I feel about it. Why don't we take a listen to TYT here and see what they have to say about it.
Talking about the dress code for senators. And I think it's worth talking about, especially because apparently Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer very quietly changed the Senate's already informal dress code late last week to basically allow senators like John Fetterman, for instance, to wear pretty much whatever they want on the Senate floor. Now, this has led to some, I would say, faux outrage and backlash from Republican members of the House, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, who had no problem showing, Hunter Biden's penis in the context of a House hearing. So if she wants to talk about decorum and being respectable and presenting yourself in a respectable manner, she might not be the best spokesperson for that. But nonetheless, I am curious what you think about this, Cenk, because while I love Fetterman, while my opinion on how he presents himself through the way he dresses really has no bearing on how much I like him as a politician, I do kind of have a problem with the unprofessional nature in which he and Kyrsten Sinema dress on the Senate floor.
Okay, I think what she just said right there is to me really the most important thing, is that it has no bearing on his ability to be a senator. It's materially irrelevant. It's just completely an opinion. She's not delivering any kind of factual, scientific assessment of anything. She's just sharing her feelings about, the fact that she believes that it's necessary for senators to represent themselves in a quote unquote, professional attire sort of way, which, I'll be the first to point out is a completely culturally dependent thing. Like, what's considered formal attire in so-called Western countries is not the same as you would see formal attire in, the Middle East, for example, and, most parts of Africa, I'm sure, and even India, I believe, has not like westernized, so to speak, at least not completely. So certainly Japan, obviously Korea, I think both North and South Korea for different reasons. But, all the cultures have, with the exception of a lot of European countries, dress in a kind of suit and tie very similar to people from the United States and Canada and Mexico and a lot of other so-called Western countries. So I'm not saying it's not a common business attire. I'm just saying it's not the universal business attire. And so by saying that it's necessary for people to dress that way, you're saying it's necessary for people to adhere to your arbitrary cultural standards. And I don't know why a progressive would do that when it admittedly, by her own words, has no material effect on his ability to be a senator.
Just keeping it real.
That's interesting.
Sorry.
Okay, well, we're going to poll. We're going to ask you guys, because I'm actually a little undecided about this. There is one thing I am undecided about in Fetterman's appearance, though, and that 70s porn mustache has got to go. Okay, the goatee. The goatee's totally fine. Nothing wrong with the goatee, nothing wrong with the beard, nothing wrong with clean shaven, but Raleigh Fingers over there's got to stop doing 70s porn. Okay, so sorry. Okay, now having said that, let's get to the real issue, which is also goofy, but it's not perfectly goofy, because the reason I'm torn on this is because on the one hand, I hate etiquette overall, because it's just—
No, disagree.
Hold on. It feels 90% of the time to me as silly old rules, and a lot of and a lot of people holding their pinkies like this, okay? And I think that those guys substitute that for the etiquette and the politeness for kindness, which is a very different thing, which they don't have, and they use it as a facade, and I don't like that, and I like breaking down those norms, right? Now, having said that, these days the norms have broken to smithereens, and since things are spiraling out of control, I'm not sure I want them to spiral further. So are they going to come in now with like tank tops and beach hats and flip-flops and like I'm starting to get a little uncomfortable, right? Even though it's my boy, I love Fetterman.
So Cenk really busted out the slippery slope argument. All right, go for it.
Right? And so I have never been concerned about cinema's dress. First of all, these days I don't think I'm allowed to have an opinion on it, but I legitimately never had an opinion.
You can have an opinion on it. I will allow it. Okay. And if people get mad, they can get mad. But
no, I'm kidding around.
Come on, she's a United States senator. Like, oh, are you punching down? Like,
no, I'm kidding around because some people take offense at it, but I don't care. Okay, but I genuinely don't care about that. But with Fetterman, yeah, if everyone in the Senate and House dressed like that, it does feel a little unraveling. But I still haven't made up my mind. So make more of a case for it.
I just want a little bit of professionalism, a little bit of order, because these are people who aren't just representing themselves, they're representing us and they're representing the country, right? If you can't be bothered to just dress professionally for the work you do, I mean, to me, it signals that you don't really feel that we're entitled to anything from you, right? Like, I just don't like it. I think it's, like, I have a strong bias against it, and it's partly because of certain things I've experienced, right? So I kick students out when they roll out of bed and show up to class wearing their pajamas. Get out. You don't respect me, you don't respect this classroom, get out.
Wow.
Go put some clothes on,
Professor.
Okay? I don't need to.
That is like straight salt dragon behavior. Man, if I went to class at a university that I'm paying money to attend, and regardless of what I'm wearing, as long as it's appropriate by the school's standards, if a professor decided to exercise their own judgment and put it above the actual school rules and say, get out of the class that you're paying for, I'm not going to allow you to participate because of the way, I don't like the way you're dressing. I mean, how fascist is that? Think about it in the other direction. If somebody was demanding that all women wear, Handmaid's Tale dresses or whatever, like, that all men, I don't know, fucking dressed as clowns, like, because the professor's a psychopath. I don't know why. But like whatever kind of arbitrary, like, you always have to think about if you're gonna like talk about a slippery slope and you're gonna go ahead and make the case in one direction, you got to think about it going the other direction too. There's no reason to say that the people who decide what is the appropriate thing to wear won't suddenly be fucking crazy people and make crazy decisions.
See your SpongeBob SquarePants pajama pants. I'm not interested, okay? It's just, to me, it's a sign of disrespect for the entire classroom. And in this case, it's a sign of disrespect for the Senate floor and the country. And I'm saying this in regard to a Democratic senator who
Okay, it would be a sign of disrespect if you were a fashion model and you were going to work to show off fashion and you wore something terribly unfashionable. That would be a sign of disrespect. You're not doing your job well. But as a student, your job isn't fashion. That has nothing to do with your job. Whatever cloth you happen to drape on your body, to cover your nether regions is completely a cultural phenomenon, It's not something that comes from nature. We're not born with a loincloth and a bra. It's insane to act like there's some kind of inherent rule that people need to dress a certain way in order to demonstrate respect. So, like I was saying, it's all based on context. Like, if you're, like, I've literally had, okay, so everybody would say never go to a job interview without wearing a suit, right? You're never going to get hired if you don't at least take the time to put on a suit, ideally with a tie. And people have told me that up and down all my life. And then I literally got an interview for a job. I lived in Michigan at the time. They wanted to relocate me to Seattle, give me a pretty nice pay bump, pay for my relocation, all that. And when they were flying me out to Seattle to do, the final round of interviewing, they said straight up, do not pack anything business casual, business formal, anything like that, do not even bring it. Because if you wear it to the interview, you're not getting the job. We are not that kind of company. Show up in jeans, show up in khakis, whatever, like comfortable clothes you wear. I'm sure they probably wouldn't have wanted me to show up in, a thong. But again, it's all about just reading the situation. They're telling me dress the way you would dress on like a day-to-day basis, because that's the kind of company that we are. And we don't want people to try to misrepresent themselves or try to paint themselves as something that they're not for one day just to try to impress us. So it completely depends on the situation as to what is respectful dress attire and what is not.
Really, really like, and a now independent senator who I really, really dislike. But nonetheless, this isn't about politics. It's just about being presentable, representing yourself in the best possible way, representing the country and your constituents in the best possible way, and just taking your job a little more seriously.
So representing yourself and your constituents in the best possible way, I think, has to do with passing legislation, getting policies enacted that benefit people. I don't see how clothes enter into that at all.
Seriously. Like, it's okay to take the hoodie off for a minute and wear a button-down shirt.
Yeah.
And by the way, while the dress code has been loosened for the senators, that's not the case for the staff. The staff is still expected to wear business attire when they show up to work.
Well, that's another problem, right? So now
That is bullshit. Like, whatever the rules are for the senators, it should be the same rules for their staff. If in general, in terms of the House rules. Now, if an individual senator wants to go ahead and say, my staff is required to wear an additional level of professional, I would think that's up to the prerogative of that senator. But as far as the institution itself declaring the rule, which would be the kind of de facto baseline rule, I definitely think putting in a two-tier system shows a really bad example.
we got two tiers, and it's weird that the senators can be sloppier than their staff. So, all right, look, first of all, obviously I care what you think here because I haven't made up my mind. TYT.com/polls/dress code. But you can just go, look, two things. Whenever we do polls, petitions, anything, you could always get the link in the description box if you're watching later on YouTube or Facebook, okay? And second of all, you could always just go to TYT.com/polls and you'll see it there. All right, so you tell us what you think. But I want to go to Kristen Sinema's outfits to give people context, and maybe that'll help me and you sort this out. You got that, Casper?
I do. Let's go to graphic one. Listen, this isn't a nightclub. Okay, you're reporting to work. It's the United States Senate. There are 100 of you, literally, just 100 of you, some of the most powerful people in the country. Just show up like an adult, please. And but you want to wear whatever you want to wear in your free time. That's totally fine with me. I just don't.
Show up like an adult as opposed to, is this how children dress? That was weird.
Understand like why this needs to happen in the context of work. You guys want to know what I like to wear in my free time? I like to wear little sundresses, okay? Little sundresses that would be way too unprofessional to wear on the show.
I would be personally 100% okay with Anna wearing little sundresses on the show, but that's just me.
Right?
A lot of guys are going to the poll right now going, no, wear it, wear it, wear it.
Like, look, I'm just keeping it real. Hate wearing bras. I wear like sundresses with no bra on. That's unprofessional. I'm not going to show up to it because I respect you guys and I want you to listen to what I'm saying instead of be distracted by what I'm wearing.
And say,
Yeah, again, you're an on-air television personality. If I was going on TV and I showed up to the TV studio wearing a bathing suit, I would expect people to think that was a little strange and maybe be a little put off by it. So again, context.
same exact reason why I don't wear the tank tops and the midriffs. You know, I don't want to distract you guys with This hashtag too strong body. Okay, so seriously, I didn't see a problem with the cinema outfits, except the one all the way on the right that seemed a little too informal. So the one with the orange pants and I'm just against any kind of clogs or flip-flops in the Senate. That's my only. But others, I can't tell. They look professional to me, but I don't know anything. But Anna, what's interesting is that you also take great offense when people tell you what to wear, though.
See, isn't that interesting how Cenk puts it that way? They look perfectly professional to me, but I don't know anything. It's like, why do you have to know anything about anything to decide if you think somebody is dressed appropriately?
Right.
Like, and we've talked about it on the show
it
before.
Depends on the context, Cenk. So I'll give you an example. So several years ago, the Senate actually had already loosened some of their dress code, which I agreed with entirely because they were basically attacking women for wearing dresses, like power dresses, professional business attire dresses on the Senate floor, but sleeveless, right? There's no cleavage, there's no nothing, but it's just you can see the arms, right?
I would be really curious to ask Anna if she's okay with men now wearing sleeveless dresses on the floor of the Senate. It's only fair, right?
Why is that a problem? I don't think that's a problem at all. And
I don't think that's a problem at
time
all.
to time, I'll get some salty woman who's watching the show message us about how me baring my arms is unprofessional. Yeah, damn right I'll get upset about that. Like, I know how to dress professionally. My arms are not some sexual, my arms are not like genitals, okay? Everything's gonna be fine.
I mean, not me personally, but there's definitely people out there who I think would probably disagree about arms being a sexualized thing. I mean, what is it, Rule 46? Like, people are going to be turned on by what they're going to be turned on by.
So I do have I'm not like a total prude about it, but at the same time, I think that there's like a clear distinction between dressing professionally, you could still bare your arms, it's gonna be all right, versus like whatever Kyrsten Sinema's into.
So you do believe in a right to bear arms?
I do believe in a right to bear arms in this specific context. And by the way, look, there are some concerns about Fetterman in particular, right? Because of the fact that he.
Okay, so you're totally okay with women bearing their arms. Again, if this was, for example, off the top of my head, Saudi Arabia, probably not going to be the same kind of cultural reaction.
Suffered a stroke. That might have an impact on his motor skills. Dealing with buttons might be difficult. Totally understand that. I think, sweater vests are real hot these days. No. And look, that is a legitimate concern. So I take that into account, and it is what it is. And if that's the case, then that's fine. Then an exception should be made for him for sure. But I think loosening up to the point where you can wear literally whatever you want on the Senate floor, I'm just not into it. I think it's sloppy. I think it's unprofessional. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Is that what the change was? That you can now wear literally whatever you want on the Senate floor? I highly suspect that's not the case. So again, you're being a little bit hyperbolic there, Anna. Calm down.
Sweater vests poll on two. No, I'm kidding. Okay, but I will tell you, I'll leave the story on this. It's not every day that you'll get a story where I don't have a strong opinion.
Cenk, you do have a strong opinion. I have a problem with the way you dress.
Okay.
Look at that button-down shirt he's wearing from 1996 maybe? It's faded. Cenk, it's so faded. Go to his one shot.
No. Are you kidding me? I only got this 5-6 years ago.
Faded, Cenk.
Okay, my other shirt's like 10 to 20 years old.
You guys think that I only have the standard for the politicians. So you don't know how many times I've talked to Cenk about his appearance on the show.
I almost wore the gray version of this the other day on doing a podcast interview, and it's all frayed.
He's a CEO. He's a CEO of this company, and he's on air, but he can't be bothered to buy a new shirt.
Well, it's not just bothered too, right? There's other issues too. But anyways, so tyt.com/polls, you tell us, because I apparently am disqualified by my own dress for voting in this poll, which there's a twist I didn't see coming in the story.
So I was curious, does it fucking matter the way you dress? Like, really? And, according to this article in Inc. magazine, research shows that the clothes you wear actually change the way you perform. So, they talk about how professional actors will come to practice in certain clothing pieces that make them feel more like their character. And then a few weeks later, when they're closer to opening, they'll have an actual dress rehearsal with their real costumes. And it's pretty amazing to see how the right clothes bring the performances up to a whole new level and transform the actor into the character. Now, I'll point out the obvious. They're acting, which means by definition, they are pretending to be a person that they aren't. When you go out and are in the real world, being yourself, interacting with other real human beings, I think it's a good idea to do the opposite of that and be completely who you are. And if who you are is somebody that doesn't dress the way that, whoever expects you to dress, then fuck that person. And you dress the way you want to dress, again, as long as it's appropriate for the situation and you're not going to a kindergarten, wearing a negligee or whatever. So what do the details show? Research shows that you can tell a lot about someone's personality, politics, status, age, and income just from looking at a photo of their shoes. And, it talks about how there's some political strategies for, and again, I'll say this is politics. It's like every single color that they use, every single turn of phrase and specific word and whatever, these things are all totally thought out and planned in every single way, especially at the level of presidential politics. So that's not relevant to the actual real issue of a senator being able to be a good senator regardless of the clothes that they're wearing, and whether it would overall lead to a decline in the quality of the body, which is hard to imagine at this point that the Senate could decline any further from where it is. So I think some things need to be changed, and if a dress code is one of those things, then let's do it. According to Inc., it says, when you're dressing or grooming, consider what it says about you and whether it's in line with the message you want to communicate. There's no right or wrong. It's all about context. So, hey, that's exactly what I've been saying this whole time. It says, a tie can make you look reliable and rooted in tradition. This might be important at an investment firm where clients want to know that you're serious about stewarding their capital, but it can also come off as stuffy and resistant to change, which may be inappropriate for a tech startup. So, again, just using this same example, a suit and tie may come off as stuffy and resistant to change. John Fetterman is a little bit more of a progressive type of politician, so maybe he doesn't want to come off as old school and stuffy and the same as those fucking business ghouls that are 100 years old that have been running this country for the past 2 generations. So this says that your clothing impacts your thinking. Professional dress, one study found, increases abstract thinking and gives people a broader perspective. So, first of all, it's one study. I haven't read the study. It's from Psychological Science, so I think they're probably, I'm pretty sure they're, I don't know, it says science in their name. Let's see if they're a credible source. So here's how so first of all, I open it up, website, works, doesn't have a whole bunch of pop-ups and ads and weird shit. So that's a good sign. And then, just general things like that. You'd want to read the article. If there's a lot of broken English or something like that, that would be a red flag. But the easy way to do it is to just use media bias fact check. But unfortunately, this is not a website that's rated, so I can't use media bias fact check. But the next thing that I want to see is where's the actual raw research paper. I don't think they have it here, but I think this is probably it. Yeah. Yep. So I would want to look at the actual study itself, make sure that it is peer reviewed. But again, I'm not gonna interpret this on the fly. Basically, all I wanted to point out was the fact that they're taking their evidence from a single study, and then they're using, in this next sentence here, it's a quote from the study that says, the formality of clothing might not only influence the way others perceive a person and how people perceive themselves, but could influence decision making in important ways through its influence on processing style, the study says. So notice the two qualifier words that they use, that might and could. You could literally not do a study and you could say that sentence and have it mean the same thing. That's really more of part of your hypothesis, not something that you would say after you did the study and like came to conclusive results. So without having actually studied the study, that just rings some alarm bells for me. Professional attire creates social distance. When we're more socially distant, we tend to think more in more distant, abstract terms. In socially distant settings, we address people by their title, for instance, rather than the more intimate first name. Even after controlling for socioeconomic status, students wearing more formal clothing showed stronger inclinations towards abstract processing. So that is interesting. I think that could possibly also be a function of just, you know, it does take a certain level of giving a shit to bother to put on nice clothes as opposed to rolling out of bed and wearing whatever you wore to bed. And for people who would go to a scientific study wearing, you know, less professional clothes might happen to be also the type of personality that's just more inclined to be like, you know, how important is this really? Do I get paid more if I dress better? You know, that kind of thing. And if that's not the case and they don't really know anything else about the study, then why the fuck should they care? They wear whatever they want to wear and they go and they do their thing. And, you know, if they're not that engaged with it as much as the person who took the time to, you know, dress up nicely and groom themselves well and everything like that, if that person is more focused and engaged on the activity, then they're going to perform better. That's just completely conjecture, but I can definitely see how those factors could be related there. They talk about this thing called thin slicing, which is basically kind of like the snap judgments that your brain makes, generally unconsciously without you even really realizing it. They mention we might just get a feeling that we don't trust someone or that someone else is steady and reliable. We might not even know why. It's how we continually judge books by their covers all day, every day. And the first thing that comes to mind when I read that is racism. Like, we might just get a feeling that we don't trust someone or that someone else is steady and reliable. Well, scientific studies show that we feel more comfortable and trustworthy being around people who have similar physical characteristics to us. Whereas, you know, if you're around people of different ethnicities, then your brain is hardwired. And again, I'm not calling everybody racist, except I am, because everybody is racist. Your brain is kind of hardwired to not favor or to, you know, have some apprehension about the person who looks less like you. And there's all kinds of evolutionary reasons for that. So, you know, you don't have to necessarily feel bad about it being a racist thing. It is something that everybody should be aware of so that they can keep it in check. If you are walking down the street and you do the classic thing where there's somebody that's gonna pass you on the sidewalk, and you do a quick little jaywalk to not have to walk past them on the same side of the street. You might ask yourself why it is that you did that. Did that person actually seem like a physical threat to you in some way, or were you just putting some of your own baggage onto them, so to speak? To wrap it up, taking intentional command of how you dress and present is a good step in empowering yourself, accomplishing your goals, and living a more lucid life at the helm of your decisions. So, with that, I would totally agree. I think that taking the time to dress well, if you're going to a party, for example, like you want to look good so that the other people at the party who probably don't see you, as regularly as like everyday kind of people would, you want to give them a little bit better kind of impression of you. And, like it or not, like we talked about, people do judge books by their cover, and they're making snap judgments about people all the time. And so even though we want to try not to do that, as much as you can go ahead and try not to do that, other people are going to be doing it to you. So if you take the time to put the effort into the way you dress, then that can kind of give you a leg up and an advantage in those situations. Now, that being said, when we're talking about the context of a senator, that's really their own risk that they're taking into their hands if they decide not to dress professionally, because if that supposedly potentially turns people off from what they have to say, or just how they are in general, then they're not going to get votes from people, and they're not going to get reelected or elected in the first place. So it's kind of a self-correcting thing, I think. If a senator or a representative's constituents expect them to dress well, then they're going to demand that they dress well. And if they don't, then they're going to make them pay a penalty at the voting booth. And, likewise, if they don't care about how they dress. And that's really the way that it ought to be, right? Because, like Anna, again, said herself, their job is to serve us, not their own interests or anything like that. So if their constituents don't care about it, I don't see why anybody else should either. So that is my feeling about that. And I think the fact that the Republicans are making this an issue at all is all the evidence that anybody needs to know to realize that Republicans have no actual solutions for any actual problems, because it's just been constant culture war after culture war after culture war, and they haven't done a goddamn thing except some investigation into Hunter Biden, which has revealed nothing criminal related to Joe Biden. So they literally haven't accomplished a goddamn thing to help anybody, including rich people who I think are also kind of getting pissed off at them because they're not getting like anything out of it. So nobody likes a Republican right now, except for like the third of the country that is obsessed with Donald Trump still for whatever reason, because they're all fucking brainwashed. So if you are one of those people, please seek mental health counseling, because you need it. And I'm goddamn serious about that. But you're not going to listen to me anyway, so fuck you. For the rest of you, for open-minded independents, I hope that kind of presenting this stuff on a relatively level-headed way with like a nuanced discussion kind of helps to bring you to the light. And then obviously, for the more progressive among us, you're already here just nodding along, and I'm preaching to the choir. And I'm not really sure what you're doing watching this video, because I don't know what you get out of it, but let me know in the comments, because I'm curious. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this quick video that ended up being like 40 minutes long. And say that, yeah, I hope everybody has a great thing. Bye now.